that sort of put a bee in my bonnet that after 10 years of working for this another person at this tutoring company where it was just like push the content. I had this idea that I wanted to try something different. I wanted to provide skills and not so much content. And so I had this dream that woke me up in the middle of the night. It really woke me up in the middle of the night. And I said, I'm going to make videos. And I went full force into what is this next chapter going to be? I didn't have it all planned. I did not have it all planned, but I knew I needed to stop what I was doing and move on to something else and pursue this idea of reach the student where they're at.
Hi, Katie. Welcome to the Teacher Biz Podcast.
Hello, Heather. Thank you so much for having me on today. Can't wait.
I'm so excited to hear your story. Would you start by telling us a little bit about what you were doing before you had an online business and then how you got into this whole online business world?
Yes, yeah. It's I think everyone in our position where we were former teachers and we are, or in case of your audience, maybe perhaps current teachers looking to move onwards, we all have a story. And I think that's what makes our current experience so valuable. That's why I'm so here to, I'm so excited to share it because even though in my mind, my experience is so unique, I think that it could resonate with a lot of your listeners. I got a job in 2006 working. It's so funny. What we call it back then, it was an online magazine. We today call it a website. So this was back in 2006, and it was for a tech company. And that's sort of my first exposure to technology and HTML and things like that. But I kind of created a position where I was the assistant editor and I carved a position for myself where I was creating quizzes and how-tos for the audience, even though my original position was, editing the things that came in. And I just really loved this sort of teaching component. And then about 2 months after I landed that position, I also took another job at a tutoring company. So I was always, I think, just raised to work hard, and I loved the idea of work. And I have always really had two jobs from the very beginning. And after about 18 months, I left the tech company, even though I was incorporating this teaching element and sort of carving my job description the way I wanted. And I worked for a tutoring company for 10 years, making my way up to vice president. And it was test prep. So it was SAT, ACT, GRE, some college application essays. And in that experience, I was encountering student after student who was kind of back. This is back in the day when there was vocabulary on the SAT. They have, changed many times since then. But I would give these students, a list of the 500 vocabulary words and say, okay, we need to study this for next time. And I started learning from these students. Well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to study. How do I get this information that's outside of my head into the inside of my head? And that sort of put a bee in my bonnet that after 10 years of working for this another person at this tutoring company where it was just like push the content, push the content, I had this idea that I wanted to try something different. I wanted to make it more, I wanted to provide skills and not so much content. And so I had this dream that woke me up in the middle of the night. It really woke me up in the middle of the night. And I said, I'm going to make videos. I'm going to make videos. This is 2016, right? So it's 10 years later. I'm going to make videos on how to study and how to learn and how to stay organized. And I was so obsessed with this idea in the morning that I remember my dad was supposed to pick up, I had really young kids at the time, was supposed to pick up my kids in the morning to go to swimming lessons. And I was in such a a daydream stupor of excitement. I was like, I have to do this thing. And, he's knocking on the door waiting to pick the kids up, and they're still in their cribs. I hadn't even woken them up. I hadn't gotten them breakfast. And I was like, Dad, I have to do this thing. And he's like, what is it? I was like, I'm going to make videos of how people are going to learn. And he's like, well, how are you going to get paid? And I said, well, I don't know yet. He's like, well, don't quit your day job. Um, Fast forward, I ended my career at the tutoring company. And long story there, some of which I can share and some of which I can't. But turns out, in retrospect, the best thing that has ever happened to me, career wise, personal development wise. And I went full force into what is this next chapter going to be? I didn't have it all planned. I did not have it all planned, but I knew I needed to stop what I was doing and move on to something else and pursue this idea of reach the student where they're at. So this was in June of 2016. And by September, so I come from a long family of education, of educators. My mom was an educator for her entire life. I have uncles who were deans at MIT. All my family members went to Harvard. And it was just like, you gotta just stay in education. Like whether you're being educated or you're being the educator, you have to be in this realm. And that wasn't forced. That was just like it was infused into me. So I said, you know what? I am going to get my master's degree right now as I am figuring out my new business. And this point, it wasn't necessarily a business because my dad was right. I was not making any money. And then I said to myself, well, if I get this master's degree, I'm going to need to do some student teaching. And you know what? I am going to go work at a high school. So I became a high school special education teacher. At this point, I had 10 years of teaching experience. And I actually took my test prep curriculum that I changed and brought it into, because I changed it from what we had been doing, and I brought it into a private school over that summer. And then I landed a job as a high school special education teacher in September, at the same time that I started a master's program in September with two little kids, at the same time that I was so 100% committed to making what School Habits, which is the name of my business. That was like the first thing that came to me in my dream. I'm like, it's going to be called School Habits. All of it just all at the same time. And then from there, it was just drinking from a fire hose. I took in everything I possibly can. We can talk about that later, what that looked like. And I stayed as a public high school special education teacher until 2020, when COVID hit and we all shut down. And I knew that at some point I was planning to leave the school system because I was getting the same feedback as I was when I was teaching in this private tutoring company, which was there are way too many gaps in our school systems that as teachers, so I wasn't a student teacher, I was my school district allowed me to fulfill my student teaching requirement as I was a special education teacher. And there were too many gaps in our kids' education. And I'm not even talking about just special ed, right? General curriculum, that the current demands on a teacher's time, resources, the paperwork with special ed, the IEPs, all of this, I didn't have time at the end of the day to teach the student. And I was like, this isn't sitting right. I am just, everything is moving to School Habits. And I left the school system and have never looked back. So here we are.
I love that story of triumph. I love, my goodness, like it's too many things that it would make sense for you to be able to do at one time. And yet somehow, when you're so passionate about something, you just find a way to make it work. And it's incredible what you can do when you're so determined. And alongside that, I'm thankful that it was a short period of your life where you were doing so many things at one time, because we can do it for a short time, but we can't do that forever.
Right.
But what a great story. And a thing that I always think is true is that it's never that straight line towards where we want to go,
Mhm.
like we would
Mhm.
picture it in our head, but instead it's like this roller coaster looking loop-de-loo all
Oh,
over the
sure.
place. One thing leads to another, and it's never how you'd expect it to go.
Right. And I'm realizing now as I'm kind of like listening to what I had just said. I don't think I articulated that while I was teaching at the high school, I was still working on growing my business. So I would leave the high school at the regular school day. I have to be there at, 6:55 in the morning, and I would go straight to work with my client base, my students who I had been building. So I was still working those multiple jobs. And it was only in 2020 for the first time in my life where I was like, this is bananas, right? And was able to focus everything on the one thing that made the most sense. But
I love that. So tell us a little bit about what your business looks like now, what your structure is, and you can share how you've evolved to that place.
sure. So, like I said in the beginning, I just had this idea. I'm like, I want to make videos. And my dad was so very right. He's like, well, how are you gonna make the money? And I said, well, I don't know yet. Because like there's these people out there who need these skills who would be able to do school better if they knew how to do it. Right. So I was taking a step back. It wasn't like, oh, how do we learn, social studies? How do we learn science? How do we learn English? It was like, how do we learn? And then you can complete the rest of the sentence, right? How do you learn whatever? How do you learn? So I just knew that I had these videos that I needed to make. And then I dove into just, I'm on YouTube, right? I'm going to make a School Habits YouTube channel. I'm going to put these videos out there. And soon, not only were they being picked up by students, they were being picked up by teachers who were using the videos in their classrooms to teach these skills. So that was the validation that I needed. Not that I needed it because I had been collecting evidence, right, for 10 years that this was a gap, but that was like the quantifiable evidence that I needed, I would say, to say, okay, yes, you are on the right track. When these teachers were like, oh my gosh, like I need to teach my kids how to annotate. Your video on, is what I'm putting in Google Classroom. It's what I'm showing my kids. And then from there, I was like, okay, so I do need to make money. So I just, like I said earlier, started drinking from a fire hose. I went to all of my community. I live in Massachusetts, and I grew up in a lovely town. I moved one town over, and the town that I grew up in had this library that offers so many small business trainings and networking groups. And I went to them all. I had a student from my previous tutoring company who was long done with the program and reached out to me about a year later saying, hey, I'm moving on to the next thing, found me. Can I work with you? Absolutely. That led to the next, to the next, to the next. So then I built a client base. I currently have a wait list of over 32 people. And it moves very slowly because students tend to stick with me. Um, and then I have developed an online course. So I went from strictly one-on-one, which to be honest is primarily that's where my revenue comes from, is the one-on-one. And I said to myself, how am I going to handle this wait list? I can't keep saying no, because that gave me the same crummy feeling as not being able to reach the students in the classroom because I had to go fill out paperwork that I can't stay with the kid after school because I'm filling out all the paperwork, right? It gave me this feeling of like, I can help you, but I can't help you. And that's like not a good feeling to sit with all the time. So then I thought, well, to deal with this wait list, because I'm only me, I'm going to create a course. I'm going to make this more digital, even though I had the YouTube videos. I wanted something more sequential and ordered and packaged. So then I launched School Habits University, which is my course. And then podcast. And then I just started going. So there's many different branches to School Habits. But like I said, the primary revenue stream currently is the one-on-one, and it's a lot of work. It is, and I've been asked over the years, do you want to hire other tutors? I don't want, and the answer is, if I'm being honest, no. Um, I want to keep things simple. As I said earlier, I have always worked two jobs, and plus I'm a parent. I'm a mom. That's another job. And I'm a wife. That's another job, right? And and hiring in many ways is one way to scale, but in many ways, I'm viewing that as perhaps a shortcut back and not a shortcut I want to take back to feeling like I have more than one job. And I'm not looking for that. Maybe we're moving away from that and moving things to the digital space. I also have a physical product, so that's kind of, I read this word today. I came across this word today. See if I can remember. Digital. So for these businesses that are like partially physical businesses or have like a physical product and then have digital space and digital product combined, it's like I'm a digital. And I was like, yeah, that could work for us folks.
Tell us about your physical product. What is it?
Oh, that's great. Thanks for asking. It's called the Executive Function Journal. So my primary target market. So I'm an executive function coach. That is what my business is. That is what my private one-to-one coaching is I work with students with executive function deficits. And in most cases, those are people with ADHD. So I work with grade 5 all the way through adulthood. See, the benefit of working for yourself is you don't have to be like K through 12, right? It's just like, who needs help? And then whoever you are, you qualify. So the Executive Function Journal is a journal, and it's a 90-day journal that targets core specific executive functions through self-awareness. So there's 90 unique daily prompts. There's daily components on the page, each journal entry to help students develop the self-awareness, which is the foundation of executive functions. And then it comes with an optional product that supplements the Executive Function Journal is the Executive Function Journal Companion Guide for either parents or educators who are using to facilitate a child or a student's use of the Executive Function Journal. So that is a physical product that is specifically for people with executive function deficits. I don't require my one-to-one clients to use the journal. It seems to be a very different audience. People who are looking for more independent ways. Truthfully, many of my people who've reached out to get on my wait list for one-to-one coaching have come from the journal because they say, okay, I'm going to try this on my own and I'm going to do this and this. I've had great success here. What's next? What's next? And that's where the coaching comes in. And then of course that funnel, you reach a roadblock there because again, we're only one person, right? And so then moving on to the course. So it's kind of like start with the physical. We can do the one-on-one if there is space and if I get openings, and then moving on to the digital. So that's sort of the course. That's sort of the journey of someone in my ecosystem.
Yeah, I find it interesting and a little surprising that your one-to-one surpasses your digital course sales, but I feel like eventually it may swing the other way
Yes.
as the course sales increase because there is such a limited capacity with what you could do one-to-one.
Yes.
But that's really cool. I think it's a great way to start working with people too, because you get to hear directly from them what they
Yes.
need and what they're struggling with.
Right.
And then you can
Right.
just build that right into your digital course, kind of
That's
like a
exactly where the
shortcut.
course came from. Yes. So everything came from recognizing a gap in whatever system I happened to be in. So, when I was with the tutoring company, there was a gap there with skills. So I'm like, I want to make the YouTube videos. And then the YouTube video experience alerted me to the fact that there was a gap in like with the teachers being like, this video is great. I was like, oh my gosh. So, okay, so I'm going to do more. And then people found me on YouTube and then started reaching out for, the client base. And then the client base, I realized were continually validating this gap in the skill gap in our education in our students. And then that made me say, okay, well, I'm going to make the journal came first and then came the course. Now I only launched my course for the first time this past October. So that is when you're like, I'm surprised the journal or the one-on-one. That's why. And I've done 2 live launches in October and then this past March. So
Yeah.
and it's funny because I am what I don't want to say like what's next because I want to like knock on all the wood, but from launching the course to individual people, I have again been spoken to from the market and the audience and the universe, from teachers saying, I want this in my school. So I am dealing with this incredible, I am so grateful for it, inundation of emails from school systems and teachers saying, we need School Habits University because I don't have a curriculum. And I was like, you know what? When I was a special ed teacher in my teaching my academic support class, I didn't have a curriculum. I did not have a curriculum, and I was bringing my School Habits curriculum into the school system, which to me, I was, of course, because I want to serve the student, but that didn't that didn't seem right.
It's
Right?
like you're doing two jobs with one
Yes.
salary. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yes. Yes. The teacher salary is not what it should be. Right. But yeah, so that's it's been a journey. And I think that a lot of your listeners are probably, I mean, they could be anywhere. I mean, you know your audience. They could be at the very beginning. They could be at the point where I got the bee in my bonnet. So they might just be at the bee in the bonnet stage. Or they might be at the stage where they're doing both, right? And they're juggling two jobs, wondering like, is it just listen. Just listen to the opportunities that are there, right? You don't have to take them all. But if you try something and you get unexpected feedback that's like, wait a minute, I didn't know that teachers need, wait a minute, I didn't know. Follow it. Follow the audience, follow your listeners, even if you have 5 people who are in your little ecosystem and you're brand new and you've got 5 people saying, you know, it would be great if you had this, do that. That is the best market research you could possibly do. It's just listening, right? I'm sure you know that.
Oh, yeah. Listen to your people. That guidance is just so beautiful. I love to survey my audience too and
Yes.
ask them if they're not telling you. And I just get so much valuable feedback from them
Right. Right.
to point you in the right direction because no one's guiding you. No one's holding your hand and telling you where to go. You don't have a boss above you when you're running your own business. So you have to listen to your people to figure out what to do next.
Yes. Yeah. Indeed. Indeed.
I love that. So, your story is just really cool. I love that I'm getting
Yeah.
to share this with my listeners. Share with us maybe when you were started or any of those pivots along the way, if you had any mindset blocks that came up for you and how you pushed through those.
Yes. Yes, for sure. And I don't think that, and I don't want to sit here and tell the audience that I'm fully on the other side of these roadblocks because I think mindset, I maybe some people's experience with mindset roadblocks and things like that can be kind of like an on and off switch. Mine has not necessarily been. It's more like, okay, I'm making this change, I'm making this shift. Imposter syndrome, and I'm sure folks listening to this are aware of what that is. And it's, I have described it in the past. Actually, I had a friend describe it to me in the past a certain way, and I've used that ever since. You just have this expectation that like a guy with a clipboard is going to show up. I'm like, oh gosh, I've had like nightmares of a person with a clipboard being like, are you sure? And I have to go back and be like, I have 18 years of teaching experience. I have worked with thousands of one-on-one clients privately. I have a master's degree in special education. I have like, I know I am so hyper qualified to be doing what I'm doing. But there's still that sense of like that question that's like, yeah, but really? But really? And the next thing I'm going to say is not, it's not to self-promote or brag, but I want to explain. I was featured in Red Book magazine, Prevention magazine. I was on Dr. Ned Hallowell's podcast. He's the ADHD expert of like ever, right? I have been interviewed like all across the country. It's wonderful and all of that. And that's not to be like, oh, look at me, these are my credentials. Even after all of that, I expected the guy with the clipboard to show up and say, yeah, but not you. Like, who are you? I'm just literally just a person in Massachusetts. Like, what am I doing? Who am I to claim that I can like create something out of nothing? Right. And this isn't something that I'm going to say like, oh, and then it occurred to me that like I'm fine and now I don't have imposter syndrome anymore because that's not the journey. But I lost my dad in 2022, and um, he always, I didn't realize until he was gone that I have found myself being like, what would dad say? Right? What would dad do? What would dad say? He's my favorite person in the universe. And he always would say to me, and I didn't realize until he was gone that he had this expression that he would always say. And now that he's gone, I find myself saying it coming from him. And it's but so what? But so what? And it's not of a, like, the tone of it isn't just like a, like, oh, so what? It's and and what if that does happen? What if that doesn't work out? So what? And it's not a hypothetical question. I find my, and perhaps it was, but I find myself actually really, really answering it. Right? So launching this course, we're going from strictly physical, like one-on-one to and having a physical product, to going to the digital space. What if that didn't work? And then I say, well, so what? Okay, well, but actually, so what? Um, it's okay. You still have the one-on-one business. You still have the executive function journal. You still have people who love you. You still have a phone. You still have a YouTube channel. You still have this, you know what I mean? And if you have those moments of self-doubt, I think it can be helpful to people. At least it was helpful. If it's helpful to one more person, then we're winning. But ask yourself, so what? And sometimes that's the clearance or the permission you need to just take the next step forward. Because, like, not, I don't know, that helped remove the roadblock. It did. And I don't fully yet know why, but I think it just shed light on the fact that when we are creating something from nothing, there's literally nothing to lose because there was nothing there to begin with. If my digital product, if my course wasn't as successful as it is, so what? I didn't even have it before. You
I
know? Does that
love
make
that. I love that. And once we tackle that worst case scenario, I would love to layer on top of that. What if it does work? Because you have so little to lose, right? Like the initial investment of an online business is so small to
sense?
lose, but you could also completely change your life. And if it does work out, where would you be? So it's worth a try. It's worth a try. I love that you mentioned imposter syndrome. I think it's something that comes up for my students so often because we think of ourselves as teachers. We imagine one classroom, and then the idea of speaking in front of potentially millions of people on the internet. Of course, it's not that many in the beginning, so you have time to build up, but speaking in front of them is so intimidating, and they get those thoughts in their head, like, who am I to do this? Which I would love to answer with, who are you not to do this? Because there are so many other people, so less qualified than you out there doing the same thing, and you can be right in there.
Yeah.
There's so much space for you. And I love that though, because it's so common. We were talking about listening to our people before, and the thing that really helped me with the imposter syndrome is listening to the words of my people. And when I would survey them, hearing their feedback about how my products completely changed their life. Because once you hear that, it's really hard to feel like an imposter. Like once you hear from your people that, and just for listeners who are dealing with this, I'm sure you have your solutions, but when you hear from your people that this thing that you created from nothing changed their life, changed how they help their children learn, you know, totally shifted for them, that's the thing that like lights the fire, like, oh, I can do this, and try to stop me, because I have people out there who need me and I'm going to help them. So I
No,
love that.
I love that. You just said, like, who are you not to do it?
Mm,
That's a really good question because that's, if you were to honestly force someone to answer that question, you're confronted with the reality that, like, you are the person to do it. Like, who's there to stop? Who's there to stop them? Right? Who's there to stop that? To stop us? Your students, right? I just, and your point that listening to the feedback of your students can help diminish, I don't want to say like eradicate, diminish imposter syndrome. Yes, but also if you don't put something out there for them to provide feedback on, then how would you even get that feedback, right? So you have to start somewhere,
Yeah.
because you can't, if you don't have something for people to respond to and to benefit from and then share their experience with, then you're going to be stuck in that imposter syndrome forever. So it's like you you just gotta start. Like action helps with so much, with clarity, with the mindset, just with confidence. You have to start somewhere. And if it doesn't work, so what? You know?
Absolutely. That's another thing I'm always telling my students, that the clarity comes from the action, because you can never figure all of these things out by just thinking about it. You have to start doing stuff and learning from the actions that you take.
Yes.
We are on the same page, my friends.
Yes, for sure. Love it.
So tell us what you enjoy about your business, maybe one of your favorite experiences. What's been good?
So much has been good. It's hard. I do want to say, like it is hard. There's wonderful things, but it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not, it's if you're in a season. I know you've got young kids. I started this when my kids were 4 and 5, and you have to make sacrifices. And that is only up to every single person to determine what type of sacrifice they're willing to make, and when, and how much, and for how long. With all that being said, the positive experience and growth that comes on the other side, or comes from the middle of entrepreneurship, and creating specifically an existence in a digital space, is like nothing else. My experience, I mean, gosh, though, you said like what's one thing that I have liked from this experience? I mean, the list is, despite how hard it is, the list is so long. Um, the fact that I have complete control over the length, well, to a degree, between the length of time between an idea and it existing, is there's just nothing like that. Because in my other careers, as working as the vice president of this tutoring company, and then working as a high school special education teacher, and even before that at the tech company, I would have ideas. We're idea people, right? We are not in this space if we are not idea people. And to constantly be told, like, to have an idea and to share it, and then be told by someone, well, not this quarter. Oh, well, that's nice, but we don't have the budget for that. We don't have the resources for that. We don't, maybe bring that up at the next meeting. Let's put a pin in that. Like, that is just like death by a thousand paper cuts to the idea generating machine, right? It's like at some point you're going to stop. It's like the dog that keeps getting kicked every time it approaches like its owner is never going to approach the owner anymore, right? It's just like, so that's a sign that you got to get out. You have these ideas and you're not allowed to make them happen because of whatever the reasons. So I really enjoyed waking up in the middle of the night with an idea and being in control of, is it going to happen? When's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? What's it going to look like? And then I think, we're all teachers here, right? We are all teachers here. And in order to be a teacher, I think fundamentally we have to be learners. Otherwise, we would not be in, like, education is not a one-way street, right? A highly effective classroom involves conversation and two-way engagement, and we know that, right? And so we are, I think teachers make fantastic entrepreneurs because we are the ultimate learner. And let me tell you, which you don't need me to tell you because you already know, but you have to be so willing to learn and to figure things out. And there's an expression, it is not mine, it is Marie Forleo, who says everything is figure outable. And that is just this brilliant thing, as long as you are willing to make the sacrifice, to take the time it needs to figure the things out. Because every single question you have, if you're leaving the education, the classroom, to create a business on your own, you're going to have a million and one questions, a million and one roadblocks that start with, yeah, but I don't know how to, yeah, but I don't know how, but okay, there either is an answer out there that you just need to go find. And if there, so you do go do that, right? Go do that. And if there's not an answer out there at all, it means it's a question that has not yet been asked and you can make your own answer and answer it any way you want. Right. And that the ability to do that and think that way is like the ultimate essence of a learner. And that is the ultimate essence of a teacher. And so that's just why I think, honestly, that teachers make awesome entrepreneurs once they leave the classroom. Right?
I completely agree. They really do. Yeah.
Yeah,
We have those ideas. You're right on with all of that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love it.
Very
Oh,
cool.
this has been great. So much goodness in this conversation. Tell us, Katie, what you're working on right now and what you're excited about.
Oh, well, I'm a very excitable person, so I do get I get really excited really easily. I kind of hinted at this in the beginning, but I am working on getting School Habits University, which is my digital course, into the classroom. And I launched the course to be B2C, um, business to customer, and the tech and everything and the way that it's designed is for that. But as we know, we listen to our audience, and teachers want this in their classrooms. They're needing a way to speak about School Habits University to their administration and decision makers. And so I'm in the process of creating School Habits University for education and the marketing resources for that and the tech behind it and what that sort of like licensing model to go B2B, what that's going to look like. And I do not have it all figured out. But as we know, everything's figure outable. And if it's not, I'll just figure out what I want it to look like. And then I will do that. But September is like my goal. I've got a few school systems that we are starting in September. So I know that it has to get done, right? Set yourself a deadline because we don't have our bosses to do it, right? We are the bosses. So I think that if you switch over to doing things on your own, there's some things from like the corporate or education space that can be helpful, like deadlines,
Hmm. I
right?
love deadlines. I'm always telling my students to set deadlines for themselves. It's essential, I think, for actually
Yes,
getting things done within the amount of
sure.
time that you want them to. Yeah, that
Definitely,
is really
definitely.
exciting. I can't wait to hear what happens with you
Thank
evolving
you.
the school system.
Yeah,
That sounds like such a great move.
very cool.
Where can my people find you online?
Wow. So schoolhabits.com is like the hub
Mm.
of that's where my blog, my tutorials. I have a really extensive blog at schoolhabits.com. I have the Learn and Work Smarter podcast, which is for students and working professionals, because it's another place where I listen to the audience and I'm getting working professionals saying, oh, what about in the workspace? Okay, so we're doing the podcast for that. And then schoolhabitsuniversity.com is everything you need to know about the course. Socials are at School Habits. I'm not a TikToker. I've been told by my high school students, you have to get on TikTok. I'm like, listen, I'm an Instagrammer.
I'm the
So that,
same way.
yeah, right. And you can
Yeah.
only learn so many things. Just after on the heels of being like, you can never stop learning, but you can only learn so many things.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Katie. This has been a great conversation.
Thanks, Heather. I've honestly enjoyed it. This is the best. I think um, when I launched, away from the public space, the school teaching, and all of that, absolutely could have used your resources, and your podcast, and your course, and everything that you have to offer. Having gone through that, oh my gosh, I'm doing this alone experience, because that's what it honestly really feels like. Um, I'm looking back at what you now offer and like, man, I could have used that. That would have saved me so much time of like just trying to figure it out. You spend like
Mhm.
6 hours like trying to figure out some little thing, and then you finally get it. But if there's you know stuff that you offer that could help people streamline the process so they can get where we're at now, take it. That's awesome.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for saying that. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course.
Right. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Heather. Take care.